on your website, you specifically say that part of the promise of geothermal is the way that it would fundamentally change the geopolitical landscape. And I know that we've alluded to it a few times already, but I just wanted to ask you directly at it to try and explain at least to the audience what that would mean, because you worked in oil for so many years. We all understand that, say, for example, energy dependence was a huge motivating factor in the current war. You can look to all across the world for how, energy and economic development really do sit hand in hand. So that's the macro. In your experience directly, whether you have additional learnings about it, and then as well, if you could just lay out the case for why it changes geopolitics.
Yeah. So yes, I think it has the potential to change geopolitics, but geopolitics will always exist because there's vested interest in geopolitics existing, right? For example, before I answer, I'm from Colombia. Colombia has a lot of oil. We don't have a single refinery, right? Why is that? Well, because the larger world of capitalism has a vested interest in actually taking the raw material, refining it, and selling back an added value. So I think oil creates geopolitics for that reason, because the resource is not universal, and because you have to do something to that resource to make it valuable. And the resource actually transports quite well. Wind and solar are different because you don't need the fuel. It comes to you no matter where you are. You don't have to get a license to get a little bit of sunshine or the wind. So in that sense, it changes the geopolitics, but you still are dependent on the geopolitics of the things you need to build those assets. You still need to build the raw ingredients, right? So you're always dependent on those geopolitics. Geothermal is closer to wind and solar in that it doesn't have geopolitics related to the inputs and output, the fuel. The heat comes to you regardless. But it still has geopolitics with respect to building the stuff. If you're going to go and drill these holes, well, you're going to have to call the people who know how to do it, and that creates some geopolitics. But the minute it's built, that asset then really divorces you from the geopolitics of procuring your energy. You could say the same thing of wind and solar. The fundamental difference being that one is a lot more concentrated energy than the other one. So you could have a ton of solar parks, and once you have them behind the fence in your country, you could say that geopolitics are done. You're done with geopolitics because you can get all the energy, or you can have a geothermal park. But the difference in energy, the output between those two, and the land, materials, everything, intensity that it takes is going to be fundamentally different. So yes, there will always be geopolitics, but I think it fundamentally changes that, because once you build those assets, it really gives you a level of energy independence that today it's actually not possible with anything else. I don't think even with nuclear, I don't think even fission or fusion could get you to that level of independence, because you still need fuels for those, and you still need to deal with the waste. So that's where that comment is coming from. But yes, you won't find a millimeter wave drilling system in your local supermarket, so you're going to have to call somebody from outside the country to do it for you.
Right. And what about grid infrastructure? I wonder also from your experience how much you know about this. Is that also closely tied to the economic development of a country? Or at this stage, is it quite ubiquitous that there will be a grid close enough to an geothermal installation to make that transition rather seamless?
There already is. Yeah, there already is. So if you think about us wanting to repower power plants as a first step, of which there are 10,000, they are already connected to the grid, right? So we don't need to worry about that. We just drill around the power plant, provide steam to the power plant exactly at the steam specification the power plant needs, and everything else runs the same way. Now, when you build new infrastructure, you need to make sure it's interconnected. But the beauty of geothermal is you can put it anywhere, right? So, if you have the option of putting it right next to the city that you're trying to power versus across the continent, and then driving 1,000-mile transmission lines because the resource is out there, that really changes things. So wind and solar have that issue. They're so diffuse, and there's some places that are clearly much better than others for those resources. You have to create a lot of transmission. I don't think it's the case with geothermal for those two reasons. One, you repower power plants which are already connected, and number two, you can actually, you have the luxury to put it as close as possible as you want, as you need.